Welcome back to another League video. Today we will talk about itemization for tanky support champions, but we will also touch on itemization for enchanters, and I would also like to mention that all the information that I will give in this video can be applied to any role and any champion, but it mainly applies to tanky support champions. And we will take a look at 3 normal games that I played today as a reference, and I will explain my thought process for why I itemized the way I did in those games. So the first game, let's take a look at the build path. Stealth Ward, 2 pots, standard start every game as a tanky support. I mean, as Pike, you might go Sweeper instead of Stealth Ward as an example, but generally speaking you want to go Stealth Ward, 2 pots. My first back is at 3 minutes. I went boots and 2 pinks. I always try to buy 2 pinks on every back as long as I have the money, but almost no matter what I want to get at least 1. My second back at 5 minutes I get 1 pink because I wasn't able to afford anything else. At 7 minutes I upgrade to boots plus 1 cloth armor. Now let's take a look at why that is. First, I'm Alistair. I'm a tanky support champion and I want to roam as Alistair every single game pretty much. And when I say pretty much, I mean 99% of the time. That's how I play Alistair. Maybe it differs from person to person, Alistair to Alistair, but for me, when I play Alistair, my goal is to roam constantly. And that's why I go boots of swiftness as early as I can. That's my first upgraded, completed core item. And then, let's look at the team comp. The enemy team comp specifically, not my team. The team composition of the team that I'm on is not necessarily that important. It can matter, but generally speaking, when I'm itemizing, I'm looking at the enemy team. So let's take a look. They have Soraka, Lucian, Yasuo, Kindred, Aatrox. Aatrox, Kindred, Yasuo, and Lucian are all AD champions. They have 1 AP champion, and that is their support. Knowing this, I'm building cloth armor. So they have 4 AD champions, and because they have 4 AD champions, I'm building cloth armor. I'm building armor to negate their AD damage. I don't need MR in this game because Soraka is their support, and she's not going to be a big factor in fights in terms of damage. She's a healer. She might poke a bit, maybe in lane. She can be a bit annoying with her AP damage because she is an AP champion. But beyond that, I need to itemize for the damage that I will take, that I will absorb in fights and so on, in skirmishes. And that is AD damage. So that's why I'm building cloth armor. I'm building towards either Randuin's or Frozen Heart. I could also build Seek's Convergence. All of these items are good on Alistair, and that's really more of a preference thing, what you want to go for. So sometimes it's really preference. It's, do I want to go for maybe more team fighting oriented, a more team fighting oriented style, then I want to go for Seek's Convergence because it enhances my ultimate. But generally speaking, as a general item, I would say that Frozen Heart and Randuin's are very, very good. Specifically against Yasuo, who is a mobile champion, and also Kindred, also Aatrox really, Randuin's would be a good buy here. So that's really what I would probably want to get, either Frozen Heart or Randuin's, but Seek's is a totally legit item to get to as a Alistair or as a tanky support. Does depend on the support though. But as Alistair, when you're going into team fights, so Seek's Convergence would make sense. But the main thing is this. I'm building to itemize for AD damage, so I want an AD item. As in an AD support item, as in an armor item. That's what I mean when I say AD, not attack damage, but an item that will negate AD damage. But then the choice for what to go for that depends on you and your preference. So I could have gone Randuin's here, or Frozen Heart, or Zeke's Convergence, and even there are probably other options too that I would consider if I really looked at it and I really gave it some more thought. But these 3 items are so good on Alistair that it's not really worth considering other items. I would say I would actually go that far. So let's recap. They have 4 AD champions, 1 AP champion, which is their support, because the main damage I will absorb is AD damage. I'm going to itemize for AD damage, so I need to buy items or an item that gives me armor. That's the main concern, not MR, but armor. So let's go to the next game. Here I'm up against Nautilus, Caitlyn, Mel, Yi, and Camille. Camille is AD. Yi can be AD or AP depending on what he builds, but usually he's AD. So let's say AD, and then Mel, AP. Caitlyn is AD. Nautilus is AP. So they got 2 AP champions, Nautilus and Mel. Nautilus is not really a factor, and generally supports are not a factor in how I itemize. It's the other 4 champions. So Caitlyn AD, Mel AP, Yi AD, and Camille AD. So out of these 4 champions, they have 3 ADs and 1 AP. So let's see what I built. Again, standard start, stealth ward and 2 pots, and then I'm going boots, 2 pinks. And then I complete my boots. As you know, on Alistair you want to roam, and I want to roam. So I need those boots of swiftness, not any other type of boots. They're just not good enough. And then I go Ruby Crystal, which builds into Kindle Gem, and then I go Null Magic Mantle. So I first focus on getting Kindle Gem because it gives health and ability haste, as you can see. And Magic Mantle comes after or with Kindle Gem. So Ruby Crystal builds into Kindle Gem. Instead of going Ruby Crystal, I could have gone Null Magic Mantle, which is the same cost. So why did I go Ruby Crystal? Because Ruby Crystal gives health, and Magic Mantle only gives MR. So Ruby Crystal is good against both MR and AD in the sense that it contributes to my tankiness to both types of damage. While MR is only good, like Null Magic Mantle, an MR item is only good to negate MR damage. So in this game it would only be good against Mel. So I built Kindle Gem with Null Magic Mantle because I have enough money to upgrade to Kindle Gem. And also get Null Magic Mantle. If I did not have enough money to get Kindle Gem, I might opt for... Or, I mean, if I only had enough money to get either Kindle Gem or Null Magic Mantle, I might have opted for just getting Null Magic Mantle and then 2 pinks. But I was able to afford both, so I upgraded to Kindle Gem and Null Magic Mantle. So now we got health and we got some MR and 2 pinks. Later on I get cloth armor, and that is all of these components built into Solari. So I'm getting Solari. And the reason I'm getting Solari is because, as we can see, it gives health, armor, magic resist, and ability haste. It's good against all types of damage. It's good against Mel, it's good against Yi, Camille, Caitlyn, and also Nautilus. So Solari makes a lot of sense because they have a hybrid damage composition. They have both AD and they have MR. Now, it is true that I could have gone for a different item. I could have gone for Spirit Visage, for example, or any MR item. It didn't have to be Solari. I could have gone Redemption, but Redemption doesn't give any armor. So Solari is better, in my opinion. But Redemption could be a legitimate way to build Alistair 2 in this type of composition when you're up against MR or up against AD and AP, but it's preference, it's playstyle. So sometimes it really comes down to preference and playstyle. It's what is your playstyle, what do you value? If you have redemption, to make the most of it, you have to use the active, and you have to use it and time it properly. If you're not getting the full value. With Solari, it's similar, but the difference is Solari has an immediate activation, and redemption has a delayed activation. I think it takes 2 seconds for redemption to actually hit. So it's easy to mess up, to not use it correctly or that efficiently, so you're not getting the gold value out of the item. But it does depend on the game, it depends on your playstyle, and so on. So I went Solari to itemize for both AD and AP damage. That's the reason I went to AP. And I explained Ruby Crystal gives health, so it works against both AD and AP damage. And then I got Null Magic Mantle with Kindle Gem, and Kindle Gem is upgraded from Ruby Crystal. And then Cloth Armor finally. I could have gone Cloth Armor instead of Null Magic Mantle if I felt like Mel wasn't a threat at all. For example, let's say Mel is 05 and Caitlyn is 07, or is 7-0. So Caitlyn is really fed and Mel is really weak. In that case, I would probably go Cloth Armor instead of Null Magic Mantle because Mel would not be a threat. So that's something you have to consider, who is strong on the enemy team. You want to itemize for that person. But at the same time, you also want to complete items that are effective against all types of damage from the enemy team composition. Meaning, even if Caitlyn is really strong and Mel is weak, even if Mel is 05 and Caitlyn is 7-0, I would still go Solari, because what if Mel gets 2 or 3 kills? Now she's pretty strong, and if I don't itemize for her, let's say I go straight to Branduin's or Thornmail, just for Caitlyn, but then Mel gets stronger, now I'm kind of screwed because I didn't complete Solari, and I don't have any MR, and I'm really, anytime I'm in a fight with Mel or she lands her stun, I'm screwed. I'm gonna take so much damage because I don't have any a build that is effective to negate her damage. So you really want to itemize, you want to complete items that, again, negate all types of damage, depending on the enemy team composition. So if they have both AD and AP, you have to itemize for both AD and AP. Don't neglect one damage type just because one of their champions is weak. And maybe that champion deals AP damage, because you never know what's going to happen, because maybe that champion, maybe that player is going to get kills. They're going to get strong. And if you don't itemize for it, you're going to suffer. And it's going to mess up your build path. And then later I build Warden's Mail, which builds into Randuin's or Frozen Heart. So I can make a decision to either go Frozen or Randuin's with Warden's Mail. And looking at their team composition, Randuin's doesn't have any effect on Yi's R, so it's not going to slow him even if I use the Randuin's active. Frozen Heart I don't think has any effect on Yi either when he is using his R, his ultimate. And Camille is not really an auto-attacking champion. Yi is an auto-attacking champion, but I don't think Frozen Heart has an effect on his auto-attacks when he's using his ultimate. And just for reference, Frozen Heart reduces attack speed passively, so you don't need to use an active, but it reduces attack speed. Randuin's, it reduces movement speed, but you have to use the active and you have to be close to the opponent, to the enemy. Nautilus is not an auto-attacking champion either, so what this means is that I want to itemize, I want to get an item that not only gives me armor, but is efficient in terms of the effect it has actively or passively. Frozen Heart would have a passive effect reducing attack speed, and Randuin's would have an active effect where it reduces movement speed. But to be able to use Randuin's, I need to be close to them. Caitlyn has long range, Mel has her stun. It's going to be hard to get on them. And Camille is very mobile, but if she commits with her R, that could make sense. Then it could be good to get Randuin's, because it would be very natural for me to use it after she engages. I could re-engage or just engage on her and use my Randuin's to slow her down. So basically, Randuin's can be good, but I feel like Frozen Heart would probably be better. So I would probably go for Frozen Heart this game, because it, again, passively reduces attack speed. I don't need to use an active for it to be efficient, an efficient item. And I'm building that item because I need armor for Camille and for Yi and for Caitlyn, who are all AD champions. So first I go Solari, which is a hybrid item, gives both MR and armor. And then I go for an item that specifically negates AD damage, because the enemy team is mostly AD. Let's move on to the last game. So here we are up against Pantheon, Jinx, Annie, Rengar, and Irelia. Again, we have actually 4 AD champions this time, because Pantheon is also AD, Jinx AD, Rengar AD, and Irelia AD. Only their Annie is AP. So only one damage source is AP. So I'm prioritizing first a hybrid item, and then itemizing for the main damage type from the enemy team, which is AD. So let's see what that looks like. Stealth Ward, 2 pots. Standard start, and then I get boots, 2 pinks, which I always do, as long as I can afford to get 2 pinks. But I definitely need boots. That's 100%. I have to get boots on my first back. And then upgrade to Swifties and get a pink, so I can roam and control vision. And then get cloth armor. And the reason I get cloth armor is because the main damage type that they have on their team is 80. So the first item of my core component in my build, of my core item, is going to be cloth armor, because I'm itemizing for the main damage type on the enemy team. I go back and I build Null Magic Mantle. So now I'm itemizing for MR, for Annie specifically, because no one else on their team has AP damage. I then upgrade to, or I get Kindle Gem, and then finally I'm able to actually get my first core item, or second. You could say that my Swifties really are my first core item. So my second core item, Seek's Convergence, and Seek's gives health, armor, magic resist, and ability haste. So it's a bit similar to Solari in that it's an item that negates both AD and AP damage. And that's the key. Usually, almost in every game, the enemy team will at least have one champion that deals one damage type that the other champions don't necessarily do. Like in this example, they have 4 AD champions and they have 1 AP champion. So there is 1 AP champion, so I do need to keep that in mind, and that's why my first core item should work to negate both damage types. And you might be wondering, or you might be thinking, so why not go Solari? Why go Seeks? Solari would also be a legitimate buy, 100%. Nothing wrong with going Solari. But Annie has an instant stun, and it's impossible to react to her Flash R. And because of that, Seeks is a better item. With Seeks, you don't need to use an active. It activates automatically when you use your R. With Solari, to get the most out of it, the most benefit out of it, you need to activate it. So let's say Annie does a Flash R. There's no way I'm going to be able to predict a Flash R. It's instantaneous almost. So I'm not going to get the full gold value out of that, because if the Annie is good enough, she's going to one-shot anyone who she wants to, who's within range. In a normal game, assuming that the skill level of all players is equal. So Seeks is better against Annie because I don't need to react. I don't need to use the active. And for the same reason, I would not go Redemption, because it takes a lot of time to activate Redemption. It's just not good value. They have too much instant damage, like Rengar 2, using his R, using his ultimate, or attacking from a brush that we don't have vision of, or vision in. It's so quick. There's so much burst damage. Irelia is also kind of an assassin, like a fighter assassin type of champion. She can also kill people really quickly. And because they have, and also Pantheon, also a burst champion, because they have so much burst and I can't react to all of that burst, I'm going Seeks Convergence. But it wouldn't be incorrect or to get Solari or to go Redemption. It's just not as efficient. So I go Seeks, and then I build armor, Warden's Mail, and then Glacial Buckler to build into Frozen Heart. Frozen Heart reduces attack speed, like I mentioned before, and it's good against Jinx specifically. Not so much Irelia. To some extent Irelia, but definitely not Rengar and not Annie. They are not auto-attacking champions. Neither is Pantheon. So it's really good against Jinx mainly, and Irelia to some extent. I could have gone Randuin's. Randuin's would 100% be a legitimate buy here, because when they go in, like Rengar goes in, Irelia goes in, Pantheon goes in, I have time to react, especially to Pantheon and Irelia. They don't have the same burst as Rengar, for example, or Annie. So I have time to react and use my Randuins. So in this game, I easily could have gone Randuins instead of Frozen Heart, absolutely. That would have been a good buy too. And it goes back to what I said, personal preference. Sometimes it's more of a feel thing. Like you just feel like this is correct, or this feels like a Frozen Heart game. It's intuition that you build over years of experience and just playing the game a lot. But this game I went Frozen. I could have gone Randuins. And then later, I upgrade my item. First, I go Warden's Mail again, and that's because I'm actually building towards Randuins. Because the Annie wasn't a factor in this game. She did very, very poorly. If we look at her score, yeah, she was 110.5, yeah, so she had pretty much no impact this game. So basically, I'm itemizing even more for AD damage. That's why I went Warden's Mail. So this is building into Randuins. So I'm going to go Frozen Heart and then Randuins. Maybe it would have been better to go Dead Man's Plate. That could be an argument, just for more mobility, a bit of damage, and also getting armor. But that's just an idea. I'm not sure if that really would be better, or if there are better alternatives. Because Warden's Mail does not stack. I mean, I get more armor, but it doesn't reduce more damage, I think, even if I stack it. So even if I get 6 Warden's Mail items, imagine that I don't have boots, I don't have any other item, I just build Warden's Mail. I'm pretty sure that it's not going to multiply how much damage it reduces. It multiplies the armor, but not the damage it reduces. I think that's how it works, but I'm actually not 100% sure. But regardless, I'm going Randuins because it gives me more armor, and I'm going to have the active where I can slow down Irelia and Pantheon and Jinx, and I mean all of the enemy team. So I'm itemizing for the main damage type on the enemy team. That's the key point here. I'm itemizing for the main damage type, which is AD. Pantheon is AD, Jinx AD, Rengar AD, Irelia AD. Only Annie is AP, and she's not a factor because she has played very poorly this game. And then at this point, because I don't have any more slots open to build components, I'm opting for Watchful Wardstone. So I'm upgrading my support item to Watchful Wardstone to get health, ability haste, armor, and magic resist. So this is also an all-rounder. An item that works against all damage types, both AD and AP. And the main reason I'm upgrading is because, like I said, I don't have any more slots. At this point in the game with 2 pinks, and the other items that I've bought, I don't have enough space. There is no other slot to get components for the item that I'm trying to build, so I couldn't, or I couldn't build any other components for Randuin's at this stage in the game because all my slots are filled. So then I opt to upgrade Watchful Wardstone, or upgrade my support item to Watchful Wardstone, which gives me MR and armor. And then at this point I finally upgrade my boots because we got feats. And you could make the argument that I should have upgraded my boots way earlier, but they do cost 500, and I prioritized going, for example, or getting Warden's Mail instead, and buying pinks, and so on. So I never had quite enough money to buy both a component and also upgrade my boots. So maybe that is a mistake. Maybe I should have, for example, upgraded my boots after Zeke's. Maybe that would have been more cost efficient, maybe that would have been better. I'm not sure what the math looks like there. Like, what kind of gold value do you get out of upgrading your boots versus just buying components of core items? So you could make that argument that I should have gotten Swift March, for example, after Zeke's. Instead of going Warden's Mail here, maybe I should have gone Swift March. That is an argument that you could make. But the main thing when it comes to itemization that we're seeing, the pattern we're seeing in my games here, is that you need to itemize for the damage type or the damage types that you're seeing on the enemy team. So you need to know what type of damage the enemy team has to optimize your build. When it comes to, and in addition to that, you also have to know and understand what type of champion you are playing. I mentioned at the start of this video that I was going to talk a bit about enchanters. There's one item in particular, just to give an example. As Alistair, I want to go boots. I want to upgrade my boots very quickly to be able to roam. But let's say you're playing Soraka. You're probably not going to roam that much. Or even if you do roam, speed is not as important as it is on Alistair, where you have to set up vision, you need to deny vision, you have to be really quick to get to fights. Soraka has a global ultimate, for example. She just, and also she's not an engager. As Alistair, you need to be able to close the distance quickly to engage. Soraka doesn't need that. So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that, for example, if you're playing Soraka, the first item you're probably going to get is Moonstone. And instead of opting for upgraded boots, like I have prioritized in my builds, it would look like, for example, if I were to play Soraka, I would get boots and 2 pinks on my first back, but then my second back would not be upgraded boots, it would be components for Moonstone Renewer. So, for example, I would go Ruby Crystal and Glowing Mote, or maybe I would go Amplifying Tome and Fairy Charm. Fairy Charm gives mana regeneration. The point is, you have to itemize based on the type of champion you're playing. So if I were Soraka, my first back is boots and 2 pinks. My second back would be components for either Kindle Gem or Bandle Glass Mirror, depending on what I can buy or just how much money I have. So if I am able to back with 900, I'll go for Bandle Glass Mirror. If I don't have that much money, if I'm kind of low econ that game, I'll maybe go for Kindle Gem components, specifically Ruby Crystal and Glowing Mote. And after completing Moonstone Renewer, after completing that core item, then I would upgrade my boots. And the reasoning is, as I said, on Soraka, or enchanters in general, movement speed is not nearly as important as it is on tanks. So you have to know what kind of champion you're playing and what your playstyle is, what you're going for, what your plan is. And the plan is heavily based on the type of champion you play. You can't play Rengar the same way you play Alistar, naturally. You can't play Syndra the same way you play Irelia. You have to optimize your build for the type of champion you're playing, not just what type of damage the enemy team composition has. And to know what to get, what to buy, you can either buy what's recommended in the store when you go back to just feel things out and see what works and what doesn't, and read about the items that you're buying, either in-game, like in normal games, or in the practice tool, or you can simply look up guides to see what is most optimal, like going on MobaFire or checking guides on YouTube. I think I've pretty much said what I can about itemization. Just to quickly recap, you need to itemize based on the champion that you're playing and the type of damage you're trying to negate. Those are the two main things to consider when playing a tanky support champion. What is your playstyle? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to roam? Are you trying to heal? What type of damage do you need to negate? Is it AD, or is it AP, or is it both? That's what you need to keep in mind. If you have any questions, if anything is unclear, please feel free to comment down below, and catch you on the Rift.